Are you stressed that the tariffs that the US just introduced will impact your project? Here are 6 ways that you can deal with the tariffs to minimize their impact to your project. Now, it's been a very challenging week and a very stressful week. When I started shooting this on Tuesday, March the 4th, the Trump administration had just introduced the tariffs. Now, even within the last 24 hours, that's changed again, and now we're expecting those tariffs to come in April 2nd. So it's a bit of a wait and see. And of course, for any business and any project manager on a project, that is extremely concerning in terms of what it could do to your project. I think at this point, the prudent thing to do is assume that they're going to come in at some point. So here are the 6 ways that you could potentially deal with those tariffs. Now, this is specifically about projects. Maybe it doesn't really apply to businesses, I would say necessarily. Could potentially, but really the focus is on capital construction projects. My name is Nathan Fish. I have my own consulting firm, Nathan Fish Consulting. We're an independent professional services firm specializing in project management and project controls. I've had the opportunity to work across many different sectors, many different kinds of projects, different delivery models, anything from the automotive sector to food manufacturing, to public sector projects. My most recent one before I left my previous job was working on the Center Block project in Ottawa. That's a $5 billion program, and I was helping them clear up some items on their schedule. So in terms of your projects, this is really an issue of risk management and issue management. It's a risk if the tariffs haven't necessarily been realized on your project. If you're starting to see tariffs on your project, then it's really an issue that you're now going to have to deal with. And through your risk management, ideally, you've already gone through the process of strategizing how you're going to deal with these tariffs. But if you haven't, here's a few ways that you could do that. So the first way to deal with these is to avoid the issue or the risk. Now, I don't think that's very realistic because at this point, if the tariffs are going to come online, then there's not much you can do to avoid it. You really don't have a choice. The only way you could really do that is if you're very early in your project is to defer your project, which is probably not ideal for your business or your organization. The other way to do this is to defer specific elements that may be affected by the tariffs. Now, this could be things like specialty items that you're having to buy through the US. Perhaps you can buy them from Europe instead. Things like structural steel, I don't think you can really avoid that, especially with a lot of this. It's similar to the automotive industry in North America. There's not as integrated as the automotive, but there's still a level of integration that the tariffs will probably hit those items. So again, unless you can find alternates for the items on your project, there's really not much you can do to avoid the tariffs. The next item could be to transfer the risk. One way to do this is in the contracts that you have with your vendors or your contractors is to get specific language in there that really puts the risk and the cost on them, something that they have to build into their price if it's a fixed fee. Now, hopefully, if you've already got your contractors on board and contracts are executed, that's already been dealt with. If you're still procuring vendors and contractors, probably you're not going to get that into a contract, or at least finding a vendor who's actually going to be willing to sign up to that. And if they do, then it means you're probably going to pay for it as well. Mitigation. Really what we're saying for mitigating a risk or an issue is, these are all forms of mitigation in one way or another. But really what we're talking about here is you've already gone through the process of identifying the issue, identifying the strategy of how you're going to deal with it, and then how you may and what the potential cost of that may be. So ideally, you've already built that into your budget, or it's a line item in your contingency. And now that it's realized, you're going to draw on that contingency. So in terms of your risk identification, ideally you would have identified things like steel, HVAC equipment that might come from the US. These items would be subject to tariffs. Other items could be, like we said, specialty items, and that could be a range of items. It could be curtain wall. that has metal and aluminum in it. Again, there's integration in North America between Canada and United States and Mexico, and the tariffs will likely affect those products unless you can source it from another location like Europe or Asia, but then you're into potentially even longer lead times than you might get in North America. So ideally, these have all been identified already. So the next strategy we can talk about is sharing the risk. And this is somewhat similar to transferring the risk, but in this case, you're basically sharing, the cost with another party on the project. Could be a contractor, vendor, potentially another stakeholder, for example, public sector project. If you're a municipality, maybe you're sharing those costs with the next level of government up, whether it's a province or a state, or your federal government, for example. And again, those would be things that you'd need to get into your different contracts and agreements with those parties. So the next strategy is to ignore the risk. This is similar to avoiding, but I also don't think this is really that realistic, because if tariffs are introduced on something you're buying for your project, you just can't ignore it because you choose to. Again, the only real way, an example of ignoring this, is you're actually deferring the project potentially, or deferring those items that may be affected by tariffs, but really that's more of an avoidance than ignoring. So this strategy is really probably your very last option in terms of the from high to a low priority in terms of implementation. And then the last strategy would be to accept the risk. And I would say this is really part of the mitigation in terms of how you're going to deal with it. If it's something that happens and you have no choice but to pay for it, you're basically accepting it anyways. So it's an example of, suck it up, buttercup. So ideally, you've planned for this already. If you haven't and you have to accept it, then it's a cost you're either going to have to get additional funding for, or it's a robbing Peter to pay Paul example, where you're taking money from another part of your budget in order to cover this cost. But then you could just be digging yourself into a bigger hole that way, and it's not really a great way to manage a budget like that. So to summarize the ways that you can deal with tariffs on your project, and these are listed in order of best way to deal with it to probably least effective way to deal with them. First one would be to transfer the risk, which really means you've got language in your contract that you can pass these costs on to another party, whether it's contractor or vendor. Then the next strategy would be to share the issue or the risk. So you're not fully transferring it, but you're sharing a portion of the cost with another party. And it could be contractor, again, it could be another stakeholder on the project. The next strategy would be to introduce some sort of mitigation that you've ideally already pre-planned. And that could even mean you're transferring or sharing the risk, or you're just accepting it. But ideally, you've found a way to deal with it. You've accounted for the cost in your contingency somewhere. So the next strategy would be to accept the risk, and you're basically accepting the cost of the tariffs on your project or for the item on your project. The next two are somewhat similar, but probably the least preferable. One would be to avoid the issue, and this could be you're maybe deferring the project, or you're deferring the elements of part of your project, or you're potentially swapping out or substituting products that you can get from another region where tariffs don't apply. And ignoring the risk is really probably not realistic. Again, you're not deferring anything, but you can't be like an ostrich and stick your head in the sand and just, I'm going to ignore the tariffs that Trump has decided to introduce. And so really, there's only really 5 options you have in terms of dealing with tariffs on your project. So hopefully that's given you some insights on what you can do in terms of managing the tariffs on your project if they do become realized in the next few weeks or over the coming months. Hopefully this situation does calm down relatively soon, but I think given the first couple months of this administration, I think we're in for a bumpy ride over the next 4 years. So I do think it is worthwhile to plan for this. I do recall from his first administration, when tariffs were introduced on steel and aluminum, Those had significant impacts on projects, either on delays by trying to find alternatives, or just due to several claims being issued by contractors because it wasn't the cost that they carried in the pricing. And I don't blame them either. And there was a lot of litigation that occurred because of that situation. And I do foresee a similar scenario unfolding over the next year, if not the entire 4 years and beyond of this administration. So good luck. Hopefully you can minimize any impacts that you might see. Again, if people want to reach out to me, please check the links in the description. So I hope you guys found that insightful. If you like any advice or want to talk about anything to do with your projects, please check out the links in the description and reach out to me. We'll see what the algorithm provides for upcoming videos. By the way, this is my first video ever on YouTube. And if you guys would like or subscribe to my channel, that'd be really awesome. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Take care, and we'll see you in the next one.